長らくお待たせいたしました。ただいまよりポリスノーツを上映いたします。最後までごゆっくりとご鑑賞ください。
Death Stranding shows that Hideo Kojima doesn't need Metal Gear Solid to prove that he is an auteur game developer. Police Notes, Zone of the Enders, and Snatcher show that his vision for games far exceeds the Metal Gear universe. There is no question that Kojima and his staff of regulars like Yoji Shinkawa will have a great future making great non-Metal Gear games. The real question that everyone wonders is if Metal Gear Solid can be good without Hideo Kojima and the talent of regulars at Kojima Productions. Most gamers and fans would bellow a resounding no. Metal Gear Survive was the last entry and everyone hated it for a good reason. It was a hollow cash grab that recycled a ton of assets from Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Survive was a notable release for being a high-profile Metal Gear game without Kojima calling the shots. So it soured people's perception of what a non-Kojima Metal Gear game could be. The reality is that there's more good non-Kojima Metal Gear games than one would realize. Scientifically, 3 examples prove a trend. And in this feature, there are 3 excellent Metal Gear games that Hideo Kojima did not direct. Both Metal Gear Acid games are excellent, but the sequel is exceptionally amazing. The first Acid was a PSP launch title and it showed. It recycles a lot of assets from Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty, and gameplay was not fully optimized, yet it showed potential. Acid 2 is where the game's concept truly came into its own. At its core, Acid 2 is a mixture of genres that incorporates card-based gameplay, strategy, and stealth. Players mostly control Solid Snake, and eventually get a second unit to help command the field. Every action is determined by the player's deck, which is all themed after the Metal Gear universe. From the original MSX 1987 game to Snake Eater, Subsistence, the card packs widely represent the history of the franchise up until the release of Guns of the Patriots, which would release 2 years later. The in-game shop sold each era as a pack, and deeper into the game would be the upgraded versions like the integral version of the Metal Gear Solid deck. Even though the gameplay was turn-based and relied on cards to perform various actions, Acid 2 truly lived up to the tactical and espionage in tactical espionage action. The card-based gameplay meant players have to be always ready and willing to improvise at any moment. There is just enough randomization to keep scenarios spicy, but never so much that gamers could not be in control if they got clever with the hand they got dealt. And if yours truly can manage what he did with the cards he was dealt, that means your success is inevitable, as long as you're enjoying the ride. And without pain, this is easily explained. Managing your deck, keeping an eye on cost, and being mindful of surroundings and the enemy made Acid 2's gameplay thoroughly deep and addictive. At its core, this was the real Metal Gear Solid experience, but it imagined it as a tactical RPG. All of the elements fans have associated with the series were here and accounted for. The fan service is tasteful enough without being obnoxious, and the new ideas make it feel fresh and worthwhile. Longtime fans like you might scoff at Acid 2 for not being part of the main timeline, but that only frees it from baggage. Introduces ideas and characters that make this entry feel decidedly more manga-like, as if this is an anime based on figures from the Metal Gear universe that exists within the universe of Metal Gear. Snake still acts in character, and the dialogue for everyone else is as absurd and colorful as the genuine Kojima article. The most distinct aspect of Acid 2 is its art style. Unlike the first Acid, which looks like a PlayStation 2 Metal Gear Solid game, this title boasts a vibrant and stylish cel-shaded look. The art direction helps with the PSP's limitations and makes this game look timeless. Characters are illustrated and have chunky black outlines, and the environment is colorful like it's a plastic playset for Metal Gear action figures. Acid 2's art style is very endearing and makes one wonder how different things could have been if the franchise went in this direction instead of the photorealism that it is known for. Regretfully, Acid 2 is still a PSP exclusive and was never put on PSN. Hopefully, there will be a future volume of the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection that will include this criminally overlooked non-canon masterpiece. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is the little game that could. It almost got cancelled, but after Platinum Games swooped in to save it from Kojima's termination, they produced one of the most beloved entries. Most fans don't realize how little Kojima was involved with Revengeance's development, but the reality is that this game is mostly a Platinum Games product first. The soldiers at Platinum Games threw caution to the wind and abandoned any pretension that this was going to be a stealth game, and played to their strengths. The result is one of the most balls-to-the-wall, intense, stylish action games ever. And your boy Raiden has come back after events of Guns of the Patriots, making Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance the furthest in the franchise's timeline. He's badder, tougher, and meaner than ever, and he gets a cool robot dog sidekick too. In my opinion, that still doesn't top the machine that I subjugated first. But nevertheless, he goes up against the most outlandish cast of villains the franchise has ever seen that makes the game almost seem like a self-aware parody of the Metal Gear series. Nobody needs to be told how Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is great. Everyone knows how the parrying and the ultra-satisfying Zandatsu mechanics make Raiden into an awesome killing machine. The catharsis one feels when ripping a cyborg's spine and quickly moving to the next and surgically cutting a man's arm into strips and chunks of metallic flesh while a shredding metal song plays is peak entertainment. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is a game that only Platinum Games could have made. Hideo Kojima has his distinct style and vision, but there is no way that he could ever dream up half of the imagery and game mechanics in this wild beast of a game. Every musical composition stands out as a whole, crowning Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance as the entry with the best soundtrack of the series. Not only is each boss track amazing to listen to on their own, but the game also has a dynamic soundtrack so that the action on screen will synchronize with the music to heighten the astonishing displays of combat. This kind of direction is such a stroke of genius that every action game ever made should implement this feature in specific. The lyrics time to leave them all behind kick off Blade Wolf's final phase, intensifying the emotions and difficulty of the fight. It may be short, but it is extremely replayable and full of moments that never fail to entertain. The higher difficulty modes especially add extra value due to how the enemies are remixed and get their Devil Trigger modes too. Revengeance is one of the all-time greats of the 7th console gen. Gamers who missed it should give it a chance if they have an Xbox One or either of the Xbox Series systems. It's also available at an affordable price for servants like you, who prefer to live their virtual immaterial lives on Xbox Live. Hopefully it won't be overlooked when the time comes to add this to the inevitable Master Collection volumes. As early as 2000, gamers could see a good Metal Gear game made without using Kojima's involvement. A couple years after the mega hit Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation, the Game Boy Color got its own Metal Gear game. On an 8-bit processor and 160 by 144 pixels, this was still a genuine tactical espionage action game that delivered the same thrills fans loved, just in a smaller visual scale. Sons of Liberty on PlayStation 2 was about a year away from release. But even though it was going to be more advanced than any entry before it, fans who played Metal Gear Solid, aka Ghost Babel, on Game Boy Color would realize it was not that much of a leap. Transitioning the 3D polygons of the PlayStation to 8 bits of Game Boy Color is surprisingly smooth, and the gameplay hardly changes. Gameplay is the same overhead point of view that fans knew on PlayStation and PlayStation 2. Snake still sneaks around corners, crawls and hides in boxes, and enemies detect via sound and vision cones. Ghost Babel is effectively an 8-bit demake of the gameplay structure and the ideas present in Solid, and is made consistent with the style of the MSX entries. Nintendo Power ranked Ghost Babel as one of the highest quality Game Boy Color games for a reason. The gameplay is diverse, with scenarios that will keep Snake on his toes. The Galord base is huge, and the environments vary from deep jungle to hostile industrial labyrinths that are festooned with complex security systems and traps. The soundtrack is moody indeed for a Game Boy Color game and flawlessly captures the sneaking and lying in wait tone that the franchise is known for. The story is set after Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation and is suspiciously similar in its structure. Snake even meets a fat otaku to help him, and the battle with Metal Gear Gander is based on a rejected design for Rex. Cutscenes are expressed with vibrant and large pixel-illustrated portraits and codec calls. As expected from a Metal Gear game, there's a lot of these, and the intro has a lot of guts to begin with a 10-minute-long, unskippable scene. The plot might be a retread of Kojima's script, but Ghost Babel does have a lot of its ideas. Some story beats introduce concepts that later entries would explore, like Black Arts Viper's robot arm, which is like the one used by Venom Snake. Even the two dolls from Guns of the Patriots happen to be ideas first introduced here with the marionette owl. The Fury was not the first flamethrower maniac, it was Pyro Bison in Ghost Babel. This is the most epic Game Boy Color game of all time. The boys at Toei and Konami packed this cartridge with a lot of content. The main story here is decent in its length, but the fun does not stop there. Offering 180 VR missions to partake in, it gives more than enough to continue your unquenchable thirst to consume. Now ask yourself, do you have an ally with a copy, a link cable, and a Game Boy Color? There's also a battle mode to see who is truly worthy, who has the balls to take the title of Big Boss. Sadly, Metal Gear Solid on Game Boy Color is insanely cost prohibitive and rare. If there was ever a case for Konami to do their compilation releases of these games, it would be to include Ghost Babel, because it's highly sought after and underappreciated, much like me. It shows that a good Metal Gear game is very possible without Hideo Kojima or with the state-of-the-art technology. And you must understand that even the me you see is not exactly created by hands of Hideo Koji. Get the picture? And if you don't believe that it doesn't take anything between you and me performing CQC, at times all you need is the back of the box. Yes, notice any credits that are different? A lack of someone you thought was the reason behind all of your happiness. I love taking it away, but I'll replace it with something better. Me! And it isn't just any old me, it's the me that you see while playing on a disc that's Min-E, playing on a TV, an old one for your GC. That's Twin Snakes for those who are unsure how to agree. With Snake Eater getting remade, we draw closer to the day of a new Metal Gear Solid being announced without Hideo Kojima in the director's chair. We have had several made already without him calling the shots, and most of the time they're pretty good. By now, most people know what to expect to make a quality Metal Gear game. The formula is not complex, and the desires of those who are begging for more are not hard to meet. If this list will prove anything, Metal Gear can be enjoyable if it isn't a stealth game at all, made with withering technology or having a radically different art style. Most importantly, Metal Gear can be enjoyable without Kojima.